Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John with Murder by the Book. And before we get started with tonight's event, I just wanted to make some general store announcement stuff to let you know what is going on with us. If I'm looking down, I'm just checking my phone. We don't have Cynthia just yet, so I'm just double checking everywhere to make sure that there she is. She is behind the scenes, so great. So we will get started in just a second, but just to let everybody know what is going on with us at Murder by the Book, we have about a week worth of virtual events left for 2021. We will be closing out the year. I'm super excited. Next Thursday, we are going to be doing an event with the Crime Writers of Color. We got to partner with them when BoucherCon got canceled. They were doing a really great underrepresented voices panel that didn't happen because BoucherCon got canceled because of COVID and hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. But we were able to do an event with them, and through that, we have set up an every other month reading series with them. So Kelly Garrett and Alex Segura are our hosts. They're fantastic. They are going to be chatting with Sujata Massey, Mia Manansala, Robert Justice, Katie Richards, Paige Sleuth, and Kate Holohan. And the theme for December's event is Crime Writers of Color Looking Back at 2021. So that's going to be next Thursday at 7. So if you guys will check back for that. I also wanted to mention real quick, if you're looking for any last minute holiday gifts, we do have a series of subscription boxes. We've got 3 different options. There is a Best of the Month, which is a hardcover that could be any mystery subgenre. There is Crime Fiction Legends, which is 2 mystery classics that we try to theme and pair together. And then we also have a Cozy of the Month subscription box, which is a cozy that I pick out. Each one of the subscription boxes comes with a postcard with a review of why we've chosen the title. It's also got some bonus recommendations on the back of it as well. So they are available in 3 or 12-month increments. They are also available to pick up in store or ship. So you can visit the website for more information about those. And I've dropped a link in the comments for those. But tonight, I'm really excited to have Laura Bradford and Cynthia Kuhn with us. I enjoyed both of their books, and I can't wait to hear them talk about them. So I'm going to bring them out. We are going to start with Laura. How are you tonight, Laura?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So Laura's newest book is A Plus One for Murder. It is the first book in her Friend for Hire series, and it just came out on Tuesday. So official bio, while spending a rainy afternoon at a friend's house as a child, Laura Bradford fell in love with writing over a stack of blank paper, a box of crayons, and a freshly sharpened number 2 pencil. From that moment, she never wanted to do or be anything else. Today, Laura is the national bestselling author of the Amish Mysteries, the author of the Emergency Dessert Squad Mysteries, and as Elizabeth Lynn Casey, she wrote the Southern Sewing Circle Mysteries. And I'm also excited tonight. We've got Cynthia Kuhn with us. Her newest book, How to Book a Murder, is the first in her Starlit Bookshop Mystery. Let's bring her out. Hello, Cynthia. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So Cynthia's official bio. Cynthia is an English professor and author of the Starlit Bookshop Mysteries and the Lila Maclean Academic Mysteries. Her work has also appeared in Mystery Most Edible, McSweeney's Quarterly Concern, Copper Nickel, Prick of the Spindle, Mama PhD, and other publications. Honors include an Agatha Award, a William F. Deeck-Malice Domestic Grant, and Lefty Award nominations. Originally from upstate New York, she lives in Colorado with her family. So to get us started, before we get started, actually, to mention, if anybody watching if you have any questions, it can be questions about authors' new books, previous series, writing process, any of that stuff, please post those comments in the live chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, and I will get to those in a little bit. But to get us started, can you guys each tell us a little bit about the new book in the series? Let's start with Laura.
My new series, A Friend for Hire Mysteries. Book 1 is A Plus One for Murder. And it follows my main character, Sleuth Emma. And she, after kind of losing her job as a travel agent or having the business go belly up, she decides to venture into a new business, and it's a friend for hire. So basically a paid companion, somebody who can go to a dance with someone or a wedding with someone or to a show or be an accountability partner at a gym. And so it puts her in a lot of fun places to meet people and discover bodies.
Perfect. And how about you, Cynthia? Can you tell us a little bit about How to Book a Murder?
Sure. Well, here, let me hold this up too. So I'll have a little show and tell. How to Book a Murder is about another Emma. Her name is Emma Stars, and she is a recent PhD candidate who goes back home to help her family save a bookstore. It's the family bookstore called Starlit Books. And the first thing that she does is try to pump up the literary events. And she takes on a job that's a murder mystery dinner from her nemesis. And unfortunately, the murder mystery dinner ends with a real murder. So she becomes an amateur sleuth.
Perfect. It's so funny. I didn't realize as I was reading them that both of your books had main characters named Emma until I sat down to write reviews for them for the Murder by the Book newsletter. And I was like, oh, look, they're both Emma. And I didn't click to that. So can you tell us each a little bit about the idea of kind of where the idea for the new series came from and why you decided to give your characters the jobs that you did? Let's start with Laura.
For me, it was kind of two things. It was kind of, the time that we're in. And while it's wonderful to have our friends on social media, and it was a wonderful way to keep in touch during the pandemic when everything was shut down, we've also become so concentrated on social media and our friends through social media that I started to wonder what happens when you need a live person to go to something with you and you kind of let relationships go. So that was a big factor. And I decided to just explore that and see what it would be like to hire somebody to, be your buddy.
And so did you do any kind of research into like people that potentially have that business or what that would look like?
I did. Well, one of the things that kind of springboarded it also is my youngest daughter had a coworker from Texas who moved up to New York City, and the girl was only 24, 25 years old. And she, she's out of college, and I was like, that would be very daunting for me to move to New York City when you don't know anyone at all. How do you make friends? And my daughter told me that apparently there's friend apps now, like a dating app, only you plug in the things that you're interested in, bowling or read books, running, whatever. And through this app, you can find other like-minded people and then friendships form. So it kind of was like all a swirl on that, and just how do we find our connections and how do we learn and grow from other people? And
Perfect. And so Cynthia, can you tell us a little bit about the genesis for your series?
Well, I love books. That's the short answer. And I tried to write a character who got to live sort of a dream job, which would be to be a bookseller in an independent bookstore. And I started this maybe a week or two before we went into the pandemic, or into quarantine. And I thought to myself halfway through, oh no, I just wrote a book about people going out to social events at a bookstore and no one's wearing masks, or I didn't know how to handle that. And I thought, I'm just going to keep writing like it's a dream world. This is what I would like to be doing right now. So that's kind of how I developed the events aspect of the bookstore.
Yeah, it's nice. I was telling Laura before we officially went live, we've been doing virtual events since March of last year, but we're super excited that we have actual in-store stuff scheduled for January and February. It'll be the first stuff. Our last in-store event was Deanna Rayburn on like March 13th of last year. So we're so excited to have in-store stuff, but it was nice to get to vicariously kind of get to attend a book event through these. So one of the things I thought was really funny, so in How to Book a Murder, in addition to helping this friend throw this murder mystery dinner, we get to see Emma host a kind of lavish launch party for an author named Calliope Nightfall, who wants this big Edgar Allan Poe themed launch party. So was she based on any authors that you know? Did you kind of pick anybody, or was it all just kind of, that would be like a dream launch?
No, Calliope sort of came in on her own steam. I knew I needed to have an author, but the more that I wrote her, the more she just kind of grew larger and larger than life. So yeah, she's very fun to write.
And there have definitely been, like, as a event coordinator for a bookstore, there have definitely been those events where you have an author who at the last minute is like, oh yes, we want to do this. You want to do this? And you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like, we have X amount of time. That if you had mentioned this like a couple of weeks ago, maybe, but yeah, nope, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And so, Laura, one of the things that I love about your series is that we actually get a little bit of a Southern Sewing Circle cameo. I thought that was really fun to have one of your characters, Dottie, read. So can you talk a little bit about the decision to kind of tuck that in there?
Well, one of the characters, the side characters, is a cozy mystery lover, and she loves reading her cozies and solving the mysteries alongside with her sleuths. So when Emma comes home with this, story of a client who dropped dead in front of her, and all she wants to do is pretend it never happened, Dottie, on the other hand, is like, wow, wait a minute, this is a chance for me to put all of the things I've learned from my cozy mysteries to use. So, in order for her to be an avid cozy mystery reader, she certainly has to mention certain mysteries she's reading. So it was kind of fun to reference a series that I wrote as a pen name. So people who know that and know that that was me, it's a fun little gem for those readers. And it was just kind of a fun thing a little Easter egg in there, I guess.
Yeah. So one of my favorite questions to ask people, like you said, because, Dottie really gets Emma into this because she reads all these cozies. Do you guys think that you would make good amateur sleuths?
Oh.
I think I would like it. Because it's a different answer than what you asked us, but I think I would like to be an amateur sleuth. I actually, I'm a professor, and in the first series, the Lila Maclean series, I always thought it's so appropriate that she's a professor and an amateur sleuth because she has all the skills that are sort of necessary. She has to be observant and pay attention and analyze and interpret. So, so if that's true, then maybe the answer would be yes.
How about you, Laura?
I don't know. I always think of my characters as being a lot like me in different ways, but much braver than I am. I'm observant, but I was just saying to somebody recently that while I can recognize a person's voice, or I can see someone's face and know that I've seen them before, I would be horrible if I ever had to sit down with a sketch artist and describe somebody, their eyes, the shape of their face. I don't think I could do it. So I think I would be a lousy sleuth.
So when you're reading for pleasure, are you the type of person who's trying to figure it out as you go, or do you just want to be surprised by the ending? How about you, Laura?
I like to be surprised. I like to get swept up in the story. Once in a while, I'll see it and I'll know what it is, but I'm more of just enjoying the story all along the way.
And how about you, Cynthia?
Oh, I like to guess. I like to guess and 100 times and change the answer as I go. The information's coming out.
So one of the things that your series also have in common, besides both characters being Emma, is we both find with Laura's Emma, she has to transition into potentially a new business. And with Cynthia's Emma, she's come back and she's also sort of in this transition period. So why do you think, as kind of a subgenre of cozies, we see so many heroines kind of in that position as a series starts? Let's start with yeah.
Laura. Okay.
I think because it gives the readers a chance to start fresh with them somewhere. If we dump the readers into something that they've been doing all along, there's a lot of things you have to get them up to speed with. Whereas I think by them starting something new, we kind of feel as readers that we get to go along with the ride and watch their failures and their successes and pick themselves up again and figure it out along the way.
Yeah,
I agree with Laura. I think that's a great answer.
Oh, yay!
I think it's always great too. I think a little bit of what we get to do in cozies is kind of wish fulfillment. We would all love to go open that bookstore or start a new business. So it's always kind of fun to kind of get to see these characters kind of almost move to another town and get to completely reinvent themselves and kind of start over from scratch. And I think, we've all kind of wanted to run away and do that. So it's always nice to kind of get to do that and get to meet and discover all of these new people as you go.
Right.
It reminds me too that there's that connection with the Hallmark movies, where they're always, especially the Christmas movies, where they're moving home and doing this and it's all new and different. And I saw something on Twitter, I don't remember who said it, but they said, just once I'd like to see a Hallmark movie mystery where they move to the city and discover a whole new life. Around. Unless they're trading places. Sometimes they trade with someone who's in the city.
Yeah, that's kind of been my, for people that come into the store who might not necessarily know what cozies are, that's kind of my, it's like a Hallmark movie, but, there's a body somewhere. But I guess Hallmark does now that they're doing like Murder, She Baked, and they do a lot of stuff. You actually get a lot of bodies in the Hallmark stuff too. So what drew you to wanting to write cozy mysteries? Let's start with Laura.
Wow. Ooh, that's interesting. That's reaching. Well, I started with Mary Higgins Clark, and not that I wouldn't call her cozy. You know, she was more traditional. Yeah. But I think I just really liked I like the amateur sleuth aspect of the everyday person thrown into extraordinary circumstances and kind of fighting their way to the top, and just the cast of characters, the friendships, the warmth. I think that's what speaks to me as a person, I think. And so it just seemed like a natural fit.
Same for me, although my first amateur sleuths were Trixie Belden and Nancy Drew, and then I did move on to Agatha Christie, the dame herself, the cozy dame. And the other thing I like about cozies is the humor. I love to have my brain working on the mystery, but just be laughing along with the author's humor that they put into the story as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Mary Higgins Clark, because she definitely has definitely some commonalities there. Like she tried to avoid like any kind of graphic language or anything like that in her book. So yeah, it's getting to meet her was kind of one of the highlights of working at Murder by the Book. I don't think I'd worked at the store for very long, and we got to do a luncheon with her and her daughter Carol, and got to sit at the table with them for lunch. And it was just great to just kind of get to spend an afternoon with them and then get to watch her interact with her fans.
Oh, I have a wonderful Mary Higgins Clark story. Like I said, I was her fangirl, total fangirl. And I had an opportunity to speak to her on the telephone once via a very, very generous mystery author who heard that I liked her and was a personal friend, and put her on the phone with me at Magna Cum Murder many, many years ago. And I will forever remember that. It was wonderful.
So how about you, Cynthia? Do you have any author fangirl moments?
Many. I mean, the first time I went to Malice Domestic, I just walked around going, oh, look, yeah. I mean, just very fangirl the whole entire time. I think the person I fangirl the most was Charlene Harris. I just couldn't stop telling her how amazing she was. I just couldn't. That was the whole conversation. You're amazing. So.
Yeah. Charlene's great too. We're kind of spoiled because she just lives up the road from us in Dallas. So she's been a big friend and fan of the stores for years. So actually, a lot of Murder by the Book former staff members are all minor characters in the Suki series. Like the dress shop so like the dress shop that Tara owns, her assistant is McKenna, who is the store owner. And when Sam shapeshifts into a dog, the dog is named Dean, who's named after Dean James, who was our manager. So there's a lot of great connections there, and Charlene's she's just the best.
Wow, that's fun.
I've never been to Malice. I've been to BoucherCon a couple of times, but I've never been to Malice. And as soon as it starts happening again, I want to go, because I also feel like I would just be like, oh my gosh. Because one of the good things about, it always seems weird to say, but one of the positive things to come out of the pandemic is we've been able to do these virtual events, which has really been able to get us to connect with cozy authors and cozy readers, because, a lot of times if the book is a mass market, you have to sell a lot of those books to make it worth a publisher to send an author out on the road. So we wouldn't necessarily get as many cozy authors through. So it's been really great to be able to connect with cozy readers and cozy authors this way too. But so I've gotten to meet so many of you guys virtually in the last 2 years, but I just want to be in a room with everybody and just get to hang out.
It's the most amazing thing. You will love it. You'll absolutely love it. And thank you so much for supporting cozies, by the way. I just want to make sure I get that out there.
It's been really interesting seeing. We've talked about this a lot in the virtual events that we've been doing. How people have really been turning to comfort reads through the last 2 years. We have probably sold through our Agatha Christie section more times than I could count. We would get them all in, and you would come in and the shelves would just be empty again. And between that and cozies, it's been really great to see kind of people embracing just those comfort reads where you just want to feel like you're kind of wrapped up in a blanket and just kind of get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So with your series, since these are both starts to new series and you have previously written series before, did that change how you're working on this one? Like, do you have like a character arc in mind since you've done a previous series before and you know that that might be something that you would have to have in the future? Let's start with Cynthia.
Yes, yes, I have a character arc in mind for her. And in fact, I gave her so many possible routes that I'm not sure exactly where she'll end up because she's working at the bookstore, she's doing literary events, she's writing a mystery novel, she wants to teach at the college. I mean, she can go in like any direction based on, but one of those will, or two at least, maybe, who knows, three, maybe all of them. Some of them will come to fruition at the end. Oops, I just froze. Can you see that?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Perfect. And how about you, Laura?
I have plans for her, very definitely. But I also kind of feel sometimes as I write, I just get to know them a little bit better. And sometimes what I think I want to do with them ends up not being what I do because they tell me they want to do something else. And I love that aspect. I do like the fact that this series has older people in it and younger people, which is kind of, I think, probably one of my strong suits. I had that with the sewing circle, the different age ranges, and I love that. So Dottie's allowed that. So Dottie will have her own stories pertinent to her age and how it intermingles with Emma, who's younger, and the other clients, Stephanie. And yeah, I've got big plans for everybody.
I also like Laura. I thought that the idea of having her be a friend for hire is so great to like kind of open up the world, because then you have all of these other like legitimate reasons for her essentially to get up in other people's business and kind of be involved in other people like that.
Yeah, and it's fun. And what was kind of neat about her is that, you know, she is so reluctant. I love that she's truly a reluctant sleuth. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't want to be involved in this at all. And there's the Dottie in the background poking. And it's fun.
I also loved in yours, Cynthia, that you have a lot of writers in the book. You know, you have Emma's aunt, Nora, is a writer. Emma herself is a writer. You know, one of her colleagues, or the local detective, is also a writer too. So it's really fun to see kind of all of them and kind of writing different genres and different parts of their careers too.
Thank you. It was fun to have them talking about writing too. At one point, as Laura just said, sometimes it just takes you places the characters go somewhere that you don't expect. And he was trying to interrogate her. And it turned into sort of a conversation about plotting versus pantsing, and you know, it just naturally turned in the conversation, and they were at odds. But yeah, thank you. It's fun. It's fun to play with that.
Yeah. I don't think I asked you. I asked Laura about research. Did you? How did you research the day-to-day like bookstore stuff? Did you talk to booksellers and kind of figure out like what running an event from is on their end and stuff like that?
I had the most wonderful conversations with a variety of booksellers, all of whom are listed in the acknowledgments. They were so kind and generous. I just wrote to them and said, like, hi, I'm writing a book about a bookstore. Would you talk to me? And they answered a questionnaire, and I talked to one person on the phone for a very long time. And yeah, it was just absolutely just so kind of them to give me the scoop. And I did actually work in a bookstore before I went to graduate school, so I had a tiny little background from many years ago too.
Perfect. You guys also have such perfect titles for the books too. They fit the book so well, and they're also very just eye-catching. So can we talk a little bit about the title process, because you also kind of buck the cozy trend that you both have really great titles, but neither one of them really have kind of like cozy puns in them either. So can we talk a little bit about that? Let's start with Laura.
Interesting. Yeah, this was one of those ones where friend for hire, I just thought a +1 for murder was a great place to start it. And surprisingly, when I proposed that title, they took it right out of the gate. So that was kind of a new one. Sometimes I've had it before where they'll take one, but very often they don't. So I think this one was just a perfect lead-in, which is why I think they took it. It let people know from the start what this book basically is. So yeah, I love the whole title process. I would pay good money to sit in, say, Penguin's offices when they have their little meetings and they talk about cozy titles. I'm sure there's a lot of wine and a lot of laughing involved.
I feel like I feel like every publisher has to have like some database or like spreadsheet of like puns and like, hey, we've used this one. No, we haven't used this one. What about this one? Like that has to exist out there somewhere. And if it doesn't, I'm going to be really, really sad. How about you, Cynthia?
Okay, so I originally called this book Murder Under the Stars. And I was so anxious about like having titles because I spent so much time on my titles in the other series and it took forever. That I came up with six books and 6 titles. And I'm like, okay, good, that's all done. I decided I have all the book titles. And the first thing they said is, hey, so we need to start working on your title soon. so that didn't work out. But yeah, so I just sent a list and they said this is the one that we like the best. Book is supposed to have 2 meanings, so kind of maybe punny, but it wasn't aiming for like a cozy pun. So yeah.
One of the coolest things we got to do, and kind of the store owner is a publishing consultant for Minotaur. So she goes up and she gets to talk to them about covers and she gets to sit in on a launch and stuff like that. But at one point we were making one of our regular publicity trips up to New York. We get to we visit publicists, chat with people, but it coincided with one of the Minotaur editorial meetings, and they were like, "Do you want to sit in on this?" I'm like, "Yes, I want to sit on the editorial meeting." So I get to like go in the big conference room with like the big giant table with everybody sitting around it, like the assistants lined up on the wall taking notes. I was like, "This is just the coolest thing."
That's great.
Yeah. So, as you are reading for pleasure, do you guys read within the cozy genre or do you try to avoid it while you're writing? I know Dean James, who writes as Miranda James, when he's working on one, that's when he'll read like historical fiction or nonfiction. He won't try to read a cozy while he's actively working on one. How about you guys? Let's start with Laura.
I don't. I read women's fiction and thrillers and suspense. I think because I do just want to keep it in my own head. I don't want to be, tainted or whatever. So yeah, I tend to avoid cozies when I'm writing as well.
I think I'm doing it wrong. I'm reading cozies all day long, 24/7.
Wow.
Well, actually not all day long because I read them at night before I go to sleep because it's my joyful pleasure of book reading time. But during the day, I read so many other things for work. I read literary things and scholarship and all that stuff. So I need that little joyful moment. And I don't know if hopefully I haven't let it interfere with anything that I'm writing, but I do love being in the voice. I mean, there's sort of that lighthearted voice that so many cozies have. I like having a little shot of that every day.
So we'll start with Cynthia. What's something that you've read lately that you've loved? It can be cozy, non-cozy, just anything you've read lately that you've loved.
Right now, I'm reading Jennifer Chow's Mimi Lee Cracks the Code, which is wonderful. And that's it, period. I'm reading that. It's wonderful. Awesome. But I will also put in a plug for everyone on the multi-author blog, Chicks on the Case. Those are my blog sisters. They all write cozies. They're amazing writers. And so if anyone's looking for a book, go check it out, chicksonthecase.com.
And I'm dropping a link to that in the chat right now. How about you, Laura? What's something that you've read lately that you've loved?
Linda Castillo, I think her latest, Fallen, Forgotten.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the one that came out it was fantastic. Yeah. I love her books. And I loved Harlan Coben's Win. I thought that was his best book yet. And then I read the most recent, I'm drawing a blank right now. This is one of my go-to women's fiction authors, and all of a sudden it's just out of my head. I'll remember.
So what is it like reading something like Linda Castillo, who, also does Amish, which you've written before, but is so like opposite end of the cozy from what you write? What's that like for you as a reader reading that? It's
just a nice break. I think it's just something so different than what I write that it's just fascinating. It just takes me to a completely different place and looking at things in a completely different way than maybe I would as a cozy author. And it gets in a little bit grittier and a little bit darker. And I'm a very vanilla kind of person. So that's where I kind of get a little crazy is in my books.
So Laura, was there ever any talk about potentially releasing this one as Elizabeth Lynn Casey, or are you just Laura Bradford now?
Oh no, just Laura Bradford. It was Elizabeth Lynn Casey. That was an in-house series. So that was, we had to pick a pen name so that if I had ever decided not to continue writing them, or if the Penguin had wanted to bring someone else in, they could have brought them out under that name. But they liked me, I liked them, I liked the series, so I kept it going until we wrapped it up at book 12. And then now I just write everything under my own name.
So Cynthia, how did you come up with the name for the bookstore in the series, Starlit Books?
Oh, okay. So before I do that, can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
Clarify. Before I mentioned reading literature all day as if it was an opposition to mysteries, and I do not believe that it is an opposition to mysteries. I meant like classic lit that I have to teach. That's what I meant by that. The answer to was how did Starlit Books come about? Because it came about because of Emma's name, Emma Stars, and I thought, okay, I want this to be a family bookshop. I wanted them to have a connection to that. That was sort of the I don't know, the foundational element was this idea of Emma Stars, Starlit Bookshop. But I will tell you a little secret. Emma Stars, her name came from, I love Lucy Maud Montgomery's books, Anne of Green Gables and the Emily series and all that kind of stuff. Her character of Emily Climbs is Emily Bird Star. And I always loved that name so much. So I thought I'll do a little homage and have Emma Stars be a little nod to that. And you'll notice that her sister's name is Lucy and their cat in the bookstore's name is Anne Shirley. little Ella Montgomery motif.
And Cynthia, what made you decide to pick Poe? Both of the events that happen in the book, both the murder mystery dinner and the book launch, are both Poe themed. So what made you go with Poe?
I teach Gothic literature. He must have been on my mind at that time. I knew the book was going to be set at Halloween, and I thought Poe would fit really well in there. Since he's such an interesting figure, both at the juxtaposition of Gothic literature and Halloween. I'm sorry, no, that's not right. I'm sorry, Gothic literature and mystery. He's at that sort of the pivot point. He's important to both. So he was just on my mind, and then it was fun after that.
So for either one of you, did either of you have any publishing delays or publishing issues because of the pandemic? We've had a lot of books have been moved up a couple weeks, moved back a couple weeks, months, anything like that. Have you guys had any of those issues?
I originally, I think mine was, they talked about mine coming out at the end of October, and then it was moved to the beginning of December. But I think that was just about as much about just timing as it was anything else.
Yeah.
Similar, originally went up online with an August date, but then it was changed to December. So I'm not sure why, though. I'm not sure if it's a result of that.
I was kind of wondering that specifically while I was reading yours, Cynthia, since it does kind of set around Halloween. I was like, oh, I wonder why this didn't come out earlier this year. Yeah, there have been a lot of, even going into next year already, as we've been starting to set up stuff, we've already gotten, we'll set up an event and a week later, the publicist will be like, hey, that pub date's changed a week. Do you think we can move this back? I'm like, no, which was easier to do when it was a virtual event because it's like, oh yeah, nobody has to book a new flight or anything like that, but it starts to get a little bit trickier when it's in-store stuff.
It's funny though, all of my other books, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but all my other, the Lila books, like this one, The Study of Secrets, which we made green because it's set at Christmas time, came out in this June. And, other one that was set in, they just all had not corresponding with the holidays that were in them.
So since you brought this up, Cynthia, can you tell everybody a little about the Lila series?
Oh, sure. I'll just hold this book up too. It starts with the Semester of Our Discontent. These focus on Lila Maclean, who is a new professor at Stonedale University, and she discovers that a little learning is a dangerous thing. Keeps stumbling over bodies here and there. That's what that series is about.
And are you still writing those, or is that series done now?
I think it may be done. I'm not sure though. Never say never.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about you, Laura? Are you working on any other series now as well?
Well, I pitched an idea for another series, and we're waiting to hear. I haven't heard anything yet, but we haven't heard no either. So I think if it were to be a go, I think it would please some fans of one of my other series from the past, because it would be like kind of like a spin-off. So we'll see if it happens.
Very cool. So Lisa wants to know in the comments, she said, speaking of the pandemic, have either of you guys missed meeting fans and at in-person events? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very much, especially at the conferences too, because that's usually such a big crowd and everyone's so excited to talk about books, and that's just been a big hole in my heart for the past 2 years, not being able to connect with everybody.
And that's the thing too. We write, we spend all this time alone writing, and then it's finally you get to go out and talk about the book with somebody and see your readers and have them be excited, and you still it's just different. I mean, we get very nice emails and I love them, but it's nice when you get to see someone's face, or you get to hear that somebody drove 5 hours to come see you at a book event. It's fun, and I miss that.
Yeah. And even on the reading, and reading itself too is such a solitary thing. So there's just something about being able to just be in a room full of people who also love books and be able to chat about books. And it's been that's been one of the hardest things for us, because we've gotten to see over the years, like, maybe somebody will come to a book signing by themselves and they start talking to the person next to them, and all of a sudden there's this friendship. So 2 years later they're still coming to book events together, or so it's been really hard to not have that part of book selling too. And we're definitely excited to get to see people in the store again. And that's one of the things that we've mentioned, and I'll just put the plug out there again too for anybody watching. If not us, but if your local bookstore starts doing in-person stuff again, please go out and support them. I know other stores like us also want to keep doing virtual stuff, but once we start doing in-store things as well, it's going to be super critical that people turn up and buy books, so that way publishers know that it's still worth it to send people out on the road. So that's our blanket plea, that if you still want to see in-person author events, support those as well as you've been supporting all of the virtual stuff too. So a couple of writing questions. We'll start with the basic plotter or pantser question, and we'll start with Laura. Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I know the beginning. I know who did it. I know why. The rest is definitely pantsing.
Nice.
I'm jealous that you always know who did it. I don't always know who did it. I did the last book I wrote before the bookstore. I got almost to the end and I thought, I don't know who did this. And I go back and rework that. So anyway, I am definitely a plantser. I will start out with a very brief, almost bullet list kind of outline. And then I launch. I am joyfully keyboard pounding till I get to the end of the first draft. Then I'll go back through and turn that into a timeline and start the long process of revising.
And then, so as we talked about, both characters are both named Emma. How important is it to you? How important is the character name? Like, if you've given a character a wrong name, does it impact when you're writing? I know I've heard some people say that, like, before, they're like, oh, this character doesn't seem right, and then they've changed the name, and all of a sudden things click into place.
I think I agree with that. There's times where I'll have a name going, and maybe I'll get a couple chapters in and it just doesn't feel right, and I'll change the name, and then all of a sudden it works. So yeah, I definitely think there's something to that.
Agreed. Yes. The good thing that I love search and replace. So when I have to change someone's name, just boom.
And so as we talked about, you both have previous series, but you've both been mostly writing kind of in the cozy world. Do you have any other genre checklists that you would like to try someday? Anything that you've kind of branched out with? Let's start with Cynthia.
I actually started a standalone that is darker than a cozy. And it feels so strange to not have those conventions that I'm sort of used to having. So it keeps sliding to a cozy and I keep wrestling it back. So we'll see where it ends up. It might just be a really long cozy.
I want to write all the books, except for science fiction. That's not my thing. I've written some in romance. I just finished a 4-book women's fiction series that was Amish based, actually. I have a thriller novel that I've written that needs a lot of work, but I think it has potential. And I also have another women's fiction with suspense in my head. So I just need to focus and see what I can do with them.
So while you have all of these ideas kind of buzzing around, what's the thing that makes you say, okay, this is the idea that I'm going to go with. This is the time for this one particular thing.
I think it just feels right. I mean, I used to do this thing where I'd get an idea and I would not write it down because I figured if it was a good enough idea, I'd remember it. But as I'm getting a little bit older, that's not necessarily the best way to do things. So it just seems like whatever speaks to me the most at that particular time. But I had one that I was really gung-ho about, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago. And then it's just kind of, my excitement for it has petered out a little bit. So I don't know. I just, whatever speaks and speaks the loudest.
So that one that's petered out, is that something that you've just like put aside for now, or is it I'm done with that and you won't pick it up again? Or is it too early to tell?
I think it's still there, but it's just like it's not its time yet, where I think I need to devote a lot to it because it's something very different and it's going to be juggling a lot. And it's one of those things where I'm kind of torn because I would like it to have multiple points of view, maybe as many as 3 or 4. But I always hear a lot of pushback on that's not necessarily what is the best way to go. But yet then I read other authors who do it and do it very well, and clearly it worked for them. So I think I just need to be okay with the way that I want to do it and just do it that way and then see what happens.
How about you, Cynthia?
Whatever speaks the most, whatever has a deadline gets first, though. So, the ones I have a contract for go to the head of the line.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So Leslie wants to know, we'll start with Cynthia for this one. Have you ever named a villain after someone you disliked?
No, that's such a good idea. Thank you.
How about a victim? Have you ever named a victim after somebody you disliked?
No, neither. I've never named a character or based a character on someone that I disliked ever. I think I'm missing out on some fun, though. Maybe.
You are.
So how about you, Laura?
Yes, there was one character in a book. It was actually one of the Sewing Circle books. And yes, the name was not exactly the person's name, but it was a close enough version that, yeah, I think they probably could have figured it out, but in order to figure it out, then they would have to admit that they were an awful person, so I don't think that they would.
Nice. So Lisa wants to know, do you have any family members or friends that want to be characters in your books? How about you, Laura?
Family members. Well, the character Stephanie in my new book, one of the people that hires Emma, she's kind of loose, maybe not so loosely based on a relative, but in a good way. So yeah, I think I will leave that there.
She's such a fun character because while she's trying to like put everything together, she's just so like gung-ho about like specific things. She's like, oh, I don't want to go, like, I'm gonna try to find a place to live, but oh my gosh, we totally have to go solve this mystery.
Yeah. Exactly.
And how about you, Cynthia? Any friends or family that want to be characters in books?
Yes. I have a colleague that every time I start a new book, he says, I'm going to be the villain, right? You're going to put me in, right? He just said that to me yesterday. When will you do that? So maybe.
It's always so fun hearing authors say that, like, you know, if they do that, like, inevitably the person that they based the character on, like, never knows. They think they're like some other person that's like not them at all.
Yeah.
We'll do this. Okay, so we talked about kind of authors that you fangirled over, but if there was one author that you have not met that you could, that was like living or dead, bucket list author that you would want to meet and get to have a conversation with, who would that be? Let's start with Cynthia.
Well, I already said Lucy Maud Montgomery, so I'm going to go with her, and she's tied with Dorothy Parker.
Yeah.
Wow. This is hard. This is very, very hard. Wow. I think I'd like to meet Lisa. I've already met Linda Castillo, so I think I would like to, maybe I'd like to meet Lisa Unger. I'd like to sit down with her. I think she's a really, really, really good suspense writer. And I think everybody should know who she is because her books are fantastic.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. Her books are great. And personally, she's great too. That's one of the, so Vicky Fee says that she fangirled over Laura at Malice in the comments.
Oh, yay!
And Leslie Karst says that she thinks she might be a little frightened to chat with Dorothy Parker, which accurate. I think that's a valid concern.
Yeah. Good point. Hi, Vicky and Leslie. They're from Chicks on the Case too.
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of love for the blog and the comments. So in case anybody has tuned in late, make sure you check that out. Go through the comments and get the link for that. So are either of you part of a writing group or a critique group?
Chicks on the Case.
Yeah.
Sorry, talking about them, but we exchange manuscripts.
Yeah. I'm not in a formal group, but my bestie is Lynn Cahoon, which is another cozy mystery writer. And she and I bounce things off each other and brainstorm and talk marketing and all sorts of stuff. So that's where I get my lift or my boost when I need it.
Oh, I should add too, I have a critique partner. She's written cozies under the name Ann Myers and Nora Page.
Oh, okay.
And and that's all. She's amazing.
I love cozy pseudonyms. It's always fun, whenever a new book comes in that's the first in a new series and its name and a name that we don't recognize. And the first thing we do is to go directly to that copyright page and say, okay, who is this person? So we've talked about new books. Can you guys tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up next? Let's start with Laura.
Up next would be book 2 in the Friend for Hire Mysteries. That'll be out July 5th. And it's called A Perilous Pal. And we learn a lot more about Emma and some connections she may have that she doesn't even realize she has to other people in the book. So it's fun. It's fun taking the characters another step further and kind of revealing another layer to them. That's my favorite part of series writing, is just learning more and more about the characters and watching them grow from book to book.
And how about you, Cynthia?
Same. Book 2 in the Starlit Bookshop Mysteries is called In the Event of Murder. And Emma is she's helping out with the library gala, which is on New Year's Eve, and they have some celebrities coming from a crime show called Chasers, and all kinds of mayhem explodes. So,
that's a great title, In the Event of Murder. I love that.
Thank you so much. It's very it's hard to come up with a title that's like bookish but like eventy. There's a lot going on. So thank you.
So Laura, with the second book coming out in 6 months, what's it like to be on that kind of schedule with a book every 6 months?
I don't know that the third would be that way, but it's just something I actually requested with this series because I think sometimes that it's going a year out. It's just too long, and especially when you're trying to get people used to a new series, I think the sooner that they can get their hands on it, the easier it is to grow that series. So we'll see. That's my hope.
And for you,
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I forgot to say that the second book in this series is scheduled for August 9th.
Okay, perfect. That was going to be my question. So
We're there. Okay.
All right, so I think that is going to about do it for us for this evening. But before we go, I just wanted to recap. If anybody has joined us late, we have been chatting with Laura Bradford, whose newest book is called A Plus One for Murder, and it just came out on Tuesday. And we've been chatting with Cynthia Kuhn, whose book How to Book a Murder also just came out on Tuesday. We've got copies of both of them in the store. As I mentioned, I've read both and really enjoyed them. So if you guys are looking for great cozy gifts, these are perfect. You can order them over the phone. You can give us a call or order on the website murderbooks.com. I dropped the link for the event page there where they are there. If you missed any part of our chat once we are done, Facebook and YouTube will archive them, so you'll be able to rewatch them. On YouTube, we also have a cozy mystery playlist. So Laura mentioned her friend Lynn Cahoon. We've chatted with Lynn a couple of times in the last couple of years. So any of the cozy events that we've done since the pandemic has started are all in one big playlist if you want to check those out. But also thrillers, traditional mysteries, foreign mysteries, any kind of, pretty much if a mystery author has released a book in the last 2 years, we have probably chatted with them, and it is probably somewhere on the Murder by the Book YouTube channel. So I hope that you guys will check those out. Cynthia and Laura, thank you so much for chatting with us this evening. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
You guys have happy holidays and take care. And hopefully maybe this time next year, we'll actually get to do this in person and see you in the store.
Yay.
That would be great.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
John.
Thanks. Take
Bye,
care.
Cynthia. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Laura. Thanks.
Bye.